On this week's episode of Not Your Average Meta, we're bringing you the first game of Season 5 of the film back at the Hobby Horse. This week's game features Mart returning to the channel playing his always faithful Griffin deck being led by Zeriam Golden Wing, Adam making a return playing the new Temur Adventure Commander being led by Beluna Grandsquall, Foggrow back playing his new Merfolk Explorers deck being led by Nicanzil Current Conductor, and Foil making his first appearance this season playing the classic Mardu Commander Kaalia the Vast. Now that we've our fighters, let's step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Turn 1, Martin plays a Plains, while Adam plays a Forest, paying 1 for a Flax and Intruder. Fog plays an Unclaimed Territory naming Merfolk, while Foil draws return and plays a tapped Temple of Malice. He then scries 1 card while Martin draws return and plays a second Plains, paying 2 for a Mind Stone. Adam plays a tapped Storm Carved Coast for turn before going to combat, swinging his Flax and Intruder over at Foil for 1 damage. Fog plays a Force for turn and then pays 2 to cast his commander, Nicanzil. Foil just plays a tapped Snowfield Sinkhole and passes. Martin plays a Plains for turn and then taps out, paying 4 to cast his commander, Zeriam. Adam plays a Mountain for turn and then also pays 3 to cast his commander, Beluna. Fog plays an Island for turn and then pays 3 for a Water Wind Scout, creating a map token when she enters play. Foil plays an untapped Sundown Pass for turn and passes. Martin plays another Plains for turn before going to combat, hitting Adam with his commander in the air. This thing creates him 1 Griffin token before he then pays 3 for a Wild Griffin. Adam plays an Island for turn before paying 3 for Hilda's Crown of Winter, having Martin tap down his Wild Griffin when it enters play. Adam then goes to combat, swinging his commander over at Martin, dealing 4 commander damage. Fog plays a Force for turn and then cracks his map token, choosing his Water Wind Scout. He then reveals a land off the top of his library before putting it into hand and triggering his commander, which allows him to put a land into play tap. He then pays to cast Over the Edge, choosing his commander this time to explore. He then explores and reveals the top card of his library, which is a non-land card, before he then explores a second time, which has him putting 4 counters onto his commander. Fog then goes to combat, swinging his commander over at Adam, dealing 6 commander damage. Foil plays a Reflecting Pool for turn before tapping out in order to cast his commander, Kaalia. Martin plays a Plains for turn before then paying 3 for a Prison Realm, which has him targeting Fog's commander. Fog's commander then gets exiled and Martin scries 1 card, putting on the bottom of his library. Martin then goes to combat, swinging his commander over at Foil, while he swings his other 2 Griffins over at Adam. All 3 of his Griffins then deal damage, which has him creating 3 more Griffin tokens before he then pays 3 for a Garrison Griffin. Adam draws for turn and then casts a Rose Sword Acolyte while Fog tries to find a map token.
There's probably a map token in there. I couldn't find one.
Alright, this is a game inside a game, guys. We're getting this map token.
This one cash your ears out?
What?
This one cash your ears out? Play the game inside a game?
It's a game inside a game.
Oh, it was not an it was an angel token.
There's no map token here.
Mythic Angel token. It's incredible.
There's a pretty cool angel.
It's the one that what's her face?
Resplendent Angel.
Thanks, yeah.
Gamer got another mythic?
That's hot. That pack was incredible. No one ever.
Terrible.
After being disappointed with his map search, Adam then pays 2 to cast Rage of Winter, making sure Martin's commander stays tapped down. Adam then goes to combat, swinging his commander over again at Martin for 4 more commander damage. Fog plays a Force for turn and then pays to recast his commander a second time. Foil plays a Command Tower for turn before paying 4 for Drawn Inland Vala. Martin plays a Plains for turn before he then goes to combat, swinging 1 Griffin over Adam while he swings his other 5 over at Fog. Since everybody can't block, they then take their damage and Martin creates 6 more Griffin tokens. Martin then pays to cast a Charmed Griffin. This then has each of his opponents either putting an artifact or enchantment into play, and Foil puts in a Liliana's Contract, which has him drawing 4 cards when it enters play and has him losing 4 life. Adam plays a Force for turn and then pays to cast a Storm-Killed Vanguard, which has him gaining 1 life when it enters play. Fog draws for turn and then pays 2 life in order to help him cast a Tezzeret's Gambit, which has him drawing 2 cards. He then casts a Jade Light's Spelunker where X is equal to 2. He then reveals the top card of his library, which isn't a land, which has him putting 2+1/+1 counters on his creature as well as his commander. Fog then goes to combat using his Scout to cruise Golden Argosy, which he then swings over at Martin. This then exiles his Merfolk that crewed his vehicle, and Martin double blocks with 2 of his Griffins. After combat, Fog's artifact gets sent to the graveyard, but his merfolk still returns back into play, which creates him another map token when it enters. On his end step, Foil casts his Swords to Plowshares, targeting Martin's commander, exiling him, which has Martin gaining 3 life. Foil then draws for turn and casts Thrill of Possibility, discarding a card in order to draw 2 new cards. He then plays a Swamp for turn before going to combat, swinging his commander over at Adam, which has him putting into play a Villas, Broker of Blood. Adam then takes his 10 damage, and on his end step, Martin pays 2 in order to crack his Mind Stone and draw a card. Martin draws for turn and then plays a Plains. He then pays to recast his commander a second time. Martin then goes to combat, swinging some of his Griffins at Foil and some of his Griffins over at Adam. Foil then blocks one of Martin's Griffins before he then pays in order to activate Villas, giving one of the other Griffins -1/-1, paying 2 life and drawing 2 cards. Foil then pays to give the Griffin another -1/-1 counter, which has him losing 2 life and drawing 2 cards, which then destroys the Griffin. Foil then also casts a Path to Exile, exiling Martin's commander before damage is dealt, which has Martin going into his library to get a land to put into play, while Adam goes down to 2 life and Foil takes 6 damage, which has him drawing 6 more cards. Adam draws for turn and then pays to crack his crown, which has him drawing an additional 13 cards because of all of his opponent's tapped creatures. He then pays 2 and casts Shield's Might, targeting his commander, giving an additional +2/+2 until end of turn. He then goes to combat, swinging all out at Martin, taking him down to 20 life. Fog draws for turn and then casts an Experimental Augury, which has him looking at the top 3 cards of his library and putting 1 into his hand, where he puts the rest on the bottom of his library, before he then proliferates all of his counters. Fog then once again pays to crack his map token, targeting his Scout. He then reveals the top card of his library, which is a land, which he then puts into his hand before putting it into play tapped. Foil plays the Plains for turn before he then pays 4 for a Roaming Throne, choosing humans. He then goes to combat, swinging his commander and Villas over at Mart, which has his commander triggering 2 times, which has him putting into play Razakath as well as the Sower of Discord, choosing Adam as it enters play. This then takes Mart and Adam both out of the game, and Foil pays 3 to cast a Varagath. Fog draws for turn and then plays a Forest. He then pays 4 and casts a Wave Goodbye, which has each player returning all the creatures in play back to their hands that don't have a +1/+1 counter on them. He then pays 3 and recasts his Water Wind Scout. This then creates an additional map token, which he immediately cracks, targeting his commander. He then reveals the top card of his library, which is not a land card, which puts 2 additional counters onto his commander. Fog then goes to combat, swinging his commander and his Spelunker over at Foil, taking him down to 11 life. Foil plays a Mount for turn, and he then pays to recast Varagath as well as recasting Kaalia. He then pays an additional 1 and casts an Esper Sentinel before passing turn. Fog draws for turn and then pays 3 to cast a Crystal Shard. This then has Foil drawing a card off a Sentinel before Fog then pays 1 to cast a Seeker of Sunlight. Fog then uses his shard in order to bounce Varagath back to Foil's hand. He then goes to combat, swinging all of his available creatures over at Foil, who's forced to block his commander with his Esper Sentinel. Foil still gets taken down to 5 life, and second main, Fog casts Expel from Araska. Since Fog has ascended, this then has him choosing to put Kaalia on top of Foil's library, but instead he chooses to put her into the command zone. At this point, Foil knows he's dead to combat on his next turn, so he scoops the game up to Fog. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe in order to see more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.